Brilliant. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today for this BBIA lunchtime webinar. Absolutely delighted to have the Global Centre for Sustainable Bioproducts present to us today. So without further ado, I will hand over to Professor Sadhukhan, who's going to take us through what the centre is, what the opportunity is, and we'll make sure that there's plenty of time for questions at the end. So take it away.
Thank you very much, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here to give this webinar. I'm going to talk about the recently funded Global Center for Sustainable Bioproducts. I'm a professor at the University of Surrey. So what we are going to listen today is first of all, what the global centers are. Then I'll move to our global center, which is on bioplastics or biocomposites, why we need them, what are the challenges, what are the global problems we are addressing, and how we can provide sustainable solution. Then I'll show a little bit of chemistry of what our base biopolymer is, and then a little bit of process engineering, that how we can engineer the flow chart to make them viable. And then some early exploratory life cycle assessment and techno-economic analysis. Then I'd talk about the Global Center team and end with a bioeconomy landscape with a kind of future perspectives. So the global centers. The countries that are participating in the global centers are USA, Canada, UK, Finland, Korea, and Japan. So 6 global centers have been funded across these 6 countries. The funding call was led by the National Science Foundation of the US and all the other countries, as mentioned here. Their research and innovation office or corresponding the funding agencies have joined together to bring a pot of value of $82 million over next 5 years to create bioeconomy, to address the challenges of climate change impact, environmental impact, how do we mitigate them, the food, water, and health security provision, and energy and equity, all through biotechnological solutions. So we are looking at synthetic biology and how synthetic biology can help with the various to tackle the various challenges. So we have 6 global centers across these 6 countries. Circle, they are tackling air pollution reduction, agricultural food waste treatment, and plastic waste disposal through waste valorization. The second one from the list, from top, International Research Center for Enhancing Plant Resilience. They are going to improve plant and soil health, create natural solutions to stabilize crop productivity. And then our center, which is the Global Center for Sustainable Bioproducts, and we are making sustainable biocomposites, which are like plastics, for sustainable material solution. And then ASAP, about biodiversity through engineered energy crops, reliability and scalable biofoundries. Global Center would work on developing genetic design rules, microbial cell factories, and artificial intelligence tools for biotechnology. And IBMC, finally, macroalgae in global supply chain, providing food, fuel, and other valuable products. So let's move on to Global Center for Sustainable Bioproducts, which I can talk more about. So what we are doing, we are taking the agricultural residues such as corn stover, in this case, and through bacterial conversion process, we are turning the waste material into biocomposites, bioplastics. Where are we going to use them? A variety of applications, very wide-ranging applications, especially recyclable and durable plastics, displacing fossil-based plastics, and biomedical applications. For example, in the picture, you can see artificial heart valves, but there are plenty of applications of these biocomposites, such as grafting, replacing damaged cells, scaffold for tissue engineering, tissue engineered heart valves, human embryonic stem cells, cancer therapy, drug delivery, orthopedic, wound healing, skin repair, and many others. So next, what we are covering today is about why we need these bioplastics. First of all, why do I care? What's in it for me? We all know that single plastics are polluting the world. They're everywhere. And often plastics, either for systemic challenges, are not recycled or they can't be recyclable. And microplastics are a big, big problem for the world. And microplastics are entering to our body, to our brain through the food chain, especially microplastics generating from fossil-based plastics and single-use plastics. We can inhale them. They can go through our digestion system, through the food chain. And they would also come with plenty of heavy metals, which will contaminate. And the whole sorts of diseases can be linked to plastics pollution. So three things we talked about here are the single-use plastics, microplastics, and fossil-based plastics. How can we remedy that? What solutions have we got for you? Our biocomposites are recyclable, so thereby they can displace single-use plastics. They are biodegradable, meaning that they would completely decompose to carbon dioxide, and they won't generate any microplastics. But because they are durable plastics, you can keep them in the value chain as long as you like. So only if we incinerate them or something like that happens, because of the systemic challenges, they would biodegrade completely into carbon dioxide, but no other microplastics problem. So we can eliminate the microplastics problem. And they're also going to reduce global warming and other environmental pollution. So how is carbon renewable in our bio-based products? So we start with, say, corn stover. We eat the corn and then left is the stover stalks. Then we collect the waste material, turn them into biocomposites, our plastics, alternative plastics. Those bioplastics are then turned into different types of end-use products, especially reusable, recyclable plastics. End of life, we'll recycle them. And in case biodegradation happens, they will generate carbon dioxide, but carbon dioxide will be captured during the plant growth. So it's a complete full cycle. There is no additional global warming potential emission from embedded carbon. So our bioplastics, as said, biodegradable and durable as well. Their demand by European Union has been estimated to increase from 1.4 million tons to 3.8 million tons in 5 years. That's a massive increment, like 171% increase in demand. However, bear in mind that bio-based materials would probably have less than 5%, and currently actually at the 2% proportion compared to the fossil fuel market. So the market is still small, but it's going to exponentially increase. Why it is going to increase? Apart from the different environmental and health-related drivers, we'll see another reason. So the current market players for our biocomposites include Technor Apex, CJ Chiljedang, New Light, BioOn, RWDC, Kaneka, etc. I didn't name all of them. There are quite a few, but they're only taking a very small proportion, and there is huge implication for increasing the production. Some of them are doing extremely well. Some of them didn't do quite well. Recently, Technor Apex has taken over Danimer Scientific, which is the largest producer of our biocomposites currently. Because that happened because Danimer Scientific did not use waste material as the feedstock. They used costly first generation oily feedstock. In addition to the health and environmental drivers, we have really very supportive policy drives. For example, IPCC, carbon removals and carbon farming, they strongly emphasize locking away carbon in long-lasting products such as biocomposites, plastics, etc. Single-use plastic bans and restrictions are in place. That more and more emphasis is on recycling plastics so that we can keep these materials in the value chain and we can reduce the resource consumption, global warming potential, and other environmental impacts. And microplastics are a huge problem, and European Union is developing the strong stand and laws against microplastics. So, for example, they're targeting 30% reduction in microplastics pollution by 2030. So these things imply that the current scenarios are actually strongly driving towards moving away from fossil-based single-use or non-recyclable or microplastics generating plastics, but moving towards bio-based, more durable, recyclable, bio-based alternatives, but which are also biocompatible. So what is our biopolymer? Now I'm going to show you some chemistry, so please don't get put off if chemistry is not your strand. I'll try to explain in a very layman term. So our base polymer for the biocomposites is polyhydroxyalkyonate. Let's just call it PHA. You can see the group showing what is the group that's being repeated for this base polymer. So that's the monomer bit. And you will see two variables, X and R. And they would determine the naming convention for the PHA. For example, when X equal to 1, you would put poly 3. When X equal to 2, you would put poly 4. If you follow the naming convention across the rows shown in the inset table, you would see X equal to 1, then we are calling it poly 3, X equal to 2 at the bottom row, row 9, poly 4. And then R, which is the what group is sitting there. Is it hydrogen or is it methyl or ethyl? That will depend the total carbon number within that group. So when R equal to just the hydrogen, then the total carbon in the group is 1, 2, and 3. That's why we are calling it propionate. When R equal to CH3, which is methyl group, then total carbon within the group is 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So that's why we are calling it butyrate. So that's how the naming convention works. But what we are saying here, that our base polymer, biopolymer, will have more than one component. And that is why, scientifically speaking, these are biocomposites, not biopolymers, because we have a number of monomers present. Other thing is, because this gives kind of versatility, we can have a wide variety of applications of these biocomposites. And we can manipulate the chain length, make them more kind of amorphous, which will be very easily biodegradable, or longer chain length will give more crystalline biocomposites, which will have longer and durable life. So depending on which type of material we are using, we can basically manipulate the chain length, make them lower molecular chain PHA or middle chain PHA or longer chain PHA. So we do have the various flexibility. So our biocomposites will have versatile applications, and we have already seen and talked about the different types of recyclable, durable materials, plastics, as well as the packaging, and as well as medical sector. Medical sector has tremendous application of our biocomposites. So next, I'm moving on to now a bit of engineering, that how do we make them? And you must be wondering actually how we make them. Well, we start with biomass, so which is basically the waste material from, say, crops such as corn stover, in this case shown in the small diagram. And we pre-treat biomass to decompose. That will generate sugars, C5 and C6 sugars, and some fibers, lignin and cellulose fibers. Sugars will feed our bacteria, and fibers will be used as biofillers. So we are now introducing a new term called biofillers for the biocomposites. Now, after we feed the bacteria will grow, and then we will actually starve the bacteria, so that bacteria will start accumulating the carbon sources into these base polymers, biopolymers, PHA biopolymers. And you can see them under microscope, these PHA biopolymers in the form of granules within the cells. So we synthesized, therefore, with bacterial root, the polyhydroxyalkyanate. But that's not the end of the story. We have to recover and purify the base polymers. So starting from biomass, first the biomass will be fractionated. It will generate sugar to feed our bacteria, and it will generate some biofillers to add to the end product. We'll come to the biofillers next and in the next slide. Then fermentation happens, where there will be 90% yield with Cuprea vides necator microorganisms, so that the biomass will then pass on to the filtration, and the product line would go through centrifugation, then solvent recovery. Solvent will be regenerated. The products will go through the washing and drying phase, and then PHA will be blended with the biofiller extracted from the biomass fractionation. And what happens in between are some recirculation, such as the spent biomass could be recirculated back to the microbial culture growth. Then the biocomposite components, where we previously mentioned biofillers and biopolymer. So biopolymer is the base polymer, is the PHA. We produced that through a flowchart that we just saw. But that need to be added with some biofillers like cellulose, lignin, fibers. Why? Because we don't obtain all the properties we need for the biopolymer. Biopolymer would give good shear properties, but not necessarily strength and stiffness, such as Young's modulus to say 1000 megapascal we need for biocomposites, and tensile strength we'd need about 30 megapascal for the biocomposites. So if we reinforce biofillers within the biopolymer matrix, we will develop the biocomposites, which will have strength, stiffness, shear, as well as low density that we require for the biocomposites. And we only need 90% of biopolymer and 10% of biofiller, so a little bit to improve the properties. And how do we then manufacture? It's quite simple, actually. You simply blend the biopolymer and the biofillers together that will go through the twin screw extruder and then injection molding, and then you can mold it into different shape. And after that, the product will go through the operational life, and after life, the product will be recycled. Recycle as much as you like, and they're pretty tough and pretty durable material. So the system concept, we therefore start with biomass, which is the waste organic material. We then decompose into sugar and lignin and cellulose fiber. Sugar feeds the bacteria. Bacteria will produce polyhydroxyalkanoates, which will be purified. And then we take the polyhydroxyalkanate and fiber, blend them together to make biocomposite, which will then be used in different products. And after the products are used, they will be recycled back, and they go back to the remanufacturing process. So we could have different types of formulations, such as blending between the biopolymer and the fiber, as well as blending between fresh material, fresh biocomposite, and some recycled biocomposites. So that we need to establish that how much of the recycled content and the fresh material could give the similar properties for different purposes, recycling mainly, but could this be upcycling, and so on. Then we are moving on to the global warming potential using life cycle approach. So I have done a literature review on the global warming potential of this kind of biocomposites, PHA-based biocomposites, and we didn't find actually a whole lot of work. There are only 6 literature in this landscape, which were publicly published, and only 4 of them provided the inventory values in a very transparent manner. So I was able to reproduce those results. And here you are seeing the plot of global warming potential in kilogram carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram biocomposites on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, you are seeing the various options, feedstock we are using, or the literature has used. In the literature, you would actually find some of the waste materials, organic waste materials, being used as a feedstock for these biocomposites generation. And I have provided the abbreviation on the y-axis, but full form you would find in the insert table. So let's go one by one from left to right. So you are seeing food waste scenario 1 and food waste scenario 2. These 2 scenarios are for the food waste, but for pilot scale operations. And because pilot scales won't have, material and energy recovery, they're difficult to implement at the pilot scale or small scale, you will expect the global warming potential would be higher. So, and also you can see the hotspots are the raw materials. Then corn is the first generation feedstock, base case. After that, wastewater, large scale. They are using a slightly different system, wastewater, large scale. Their process is more of anaerobic digestion based. So they're using volatile fatty acids to feed bacteria and then taking the similar pathway towards separation and purification of the biopolymers. After that, you are looking at sugarcane base case, then corn best case, sludge gasification. This is a different route. Gasification gives rise to syngas, and therefore syngas is being fermented, and then the downstream is very much the similar route. Municipal solid waste, MSW photo, that is photocatalytic route. Here, this is also a slightly different route. It's basically the dark fermentation. After that, fruit waste-based base case. And then sugar cane, best case. Sugar cane is again first generation feedstock. Municipal solid waste, best case. Fruit waste, best case, and municipal solid waste, best case. So these are the various scenarios we reproduced, and we validated the results, and we were seeing the results, how they vary. One interesting part is, two things you can take on from here. First of all, pilot scale to large scale, you would see huge improvement in the global warming potential. And another thing you would see is switching from first generation feedstocks such as corn or sugarcane to waste-based material, organic waste-based material, you would see a significant drop in global warming potential. So that's the future direction. And what we have found also, that chemical raw materials used are quite similar across various studies. Some of them kind of sodium hydroxide or citric acid or dilute sulfuric acid, they would be used for pH control. And other like solvent used is trichloromethane or chloroform. And some studies also have used defoamer. And there are also other inventories which will supply, like nutrients or as source of different minerals or source of nitrogen, because nitrogen is vital for cell growth. But when the starvation happens, when the pH starts accumulating, then we don't need any nitrogen supply, but only the carbon supply. So that sort of, a lot of control is involved in the fed batch reaction process. And what else could we see from here is the chemical usage. In our process, we have actually eliminated the chemical usage, or rather reduced to a minimum level. For example, solvent, we have displaced the solvent with natural DPU solvent. So most of our materials are basically natural material, and we have minimized the fresh material input so that we can also minimize the global warming potential and other environmental impacts. So I have implemented the recipe midpoint hierarchist method for life cycle assessment, whole profile generation, but here I have included only the global warming potential. Look out for our future publication where we will present all the different other environmental impact profiles. Then the techno-economic analysis. So here you are looking at the capital investment in £1,000,000. I'm sorry, this is a bit UK specific context. In terms of pound value I'm showing, with respect to the capacity change, 1 kiloton, 10, 75 through to 100 kiloton per annum. You're seeing the list of equipment. Most of them you have already come across in the flowchart. There'd be inoculation, filtration, fermentation, centrifugation, solvent extraction, washing, drying. But you are also seeing some new equipment, such as anaerobic digestion and combined heat and power, CHP. The idea is to have these systems in place, so any residual organic material we can't extract any value out of, we can turn them into energy via the biogas. So heat and electricity we can generate through combined heat and power system and anaerobic digestion. Lignocellulose is the term for the biomass. So lignocellulose pretreatment or extraction that are basically referring to biomass fractionation into sugar and cellulose and lignin fiber extraction. And then twin screw extrusion, injection molding, and 3D printing are referring to the biocomposite 3D manufacturing part. After we calculate the delivered cost of equipment, taking into account of the size cost correlation and updating the cost because of the inflation and other factors, applying the chemical engineering plant cost index, we can then account for the OSBL, outside battery limit power components, to get to the total capital investment for the entire plant. For the 1 kiloton per annum biocomposite capacity, the cost breakdown is like this. Majority of the cost is due to the labor cost, fixed operating cost, 40%, because remember, this is UK specific techno-economic analysis we have provided. But for different geographic locations, we can update our spreadsheet and provide the specific cost correlations. Electricity cost then comes next, and after that material cost and capex. Capex is the annual, would involve annual capital charge, and we have obtained weighted average capital charge of less than 10%, which is highly attractive in this space. Material cost we have reduced a lot because our material is waste-based rather than food like corn or sugarcane or oily feedstock like canola oil, soya oil, which are more expensive. This comparison has been given by Europe. They are basically comparing how our biocomposite or PHA plastics would compare against traditional fossil-based plastics such as polyethylene, polypropylene. Our source is renewable, waste material, whereas traditional plastics would be primarily coming from fossil fuels. Our carbon dioxide emission is low. Fossil-based plastics would have high carbon dioxide emission. Our degradation time is quick, and also in the natural environment, they will completely biodegrade without polluting through microplastics. Fossil-based would be non-biodegradable. Our mechanical property is slightly lower than the fossil-based plastics. Cost is a bit higher, and we'd have more variety of applications. About the cost, we can reduce the cost, as I have mentioned, that by removing all the raw materials like chemicals and replacing that with more of natural materials. And we can also use like artificial intelligence to select the different types of feedstock raw material combination that would give the best cost or lowest cost. And you can lower the cost to 3.5 pounds per kilogram. And cost reduction is also possible through scaling up as well as through the learning curve effect, because as we establish new plants, we'll reduce the cost. Job aspect. So we can create direct jobs, and jobs are proportionally will vary proportionally with the capacity. For example, for 1 kiloton per annum biocomposite production, we'll have 23 jobs across operations, process quality, maintenance, reliability, health and safety, environmental, management, and admin. And these data sources come from Office for National Statistics in the UK. And sustainable, our system is sustainable. You can again see with respect to the capacity of biocomposite production, the various jobs creation, direct and indirect jobs. Indirect jobs would be across supply chains such as feedstock supply, logistics, product logistics, equipment suppliers, the external approvals like the property approving bodies, Food and Drug Administrative Authority, from which we need to take the approval for packaging or medical sector uses. Regional gross value added will come due to the turnover, due to the job creation, high-skilled job creation, and trade balanced benefit will result from export, improved export and reduced import of materials, and that will provide resource security and circularity for the country. So our team. The Global Center for Sustainable Bioproducts, we are investigating the PHA biocomposites from waste materials. This is our website. Our principal investigator is Professor Arthur Ragaskas at the University of Tennessee. And here we are 5 associate directors from 5 countries. Changwen from USA, Jiang from Korea, I'm from UK, Amit from Canada, and Chunlin from Finland. And here is our UK team, along with me, Angie and Shaiwan are at Surrey, and Strathclyde team has Shaoli, Karen, and Stephen. So I will then move on to the bioeconomy landscape. There are only 2 slides to show the future direction. The bioeconomy is more of an integrated approach. Like fossil-based economy, if we think about bioeconomy, then we are relying on organic resources and primarily organic waste materials. And therefore, the different sectors we need to integrate, such as agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and aquaculture. And then we must produce all the organic added value products, such as food for humans, feed for animals, for pharmaceuticals, medicines, all the high value added, highly functional products, including biocomposites, biomaterials, different types of fine and specialty chemicals, bulk chemicals. We can produce energy and services, but that must be the last resort of utilizing biomass. Because remember that biomass is the only alternative carbon source to fossil-based carbon. There is no other alternative sustainable carbon source. Therefore, we must first meet all our carbon-based products before actually burning biomass for energy generation. And the bioeconomic creation will eventually help us renewal of our industry, moving away from fossil-based industry, and protect the environment and enhance biodiversity. So biorefinery, as defined in my book, published 11 years ago when it was considered much visionary, we defined it as a facility with integrated, efficient, and flexible conversion of a wide-ranging biomass feedstock, basically co-processing biomass feedstocks, through a combination of different types of processing, physical, chemical, biochemical, thermochemical, as required, into multiple products, especially high value-added products, such as food, pharmaceutical ingredients, fine specialty chemicals, bulk chemicals, and biocomposites, biopolymers, before the last resort, the energy generation. And anyway, when we could start converting an organic material into biorefinery context, then it is inevitable that a lot of biomass will be remaining, which can't be utilized for added value production, and that then it will make sense to convert that biomass to convert that biomass into combined heat and power to drive the biorefinery system. So with that note, I must summarize now. So we talked about global centers, our Global Center for Sustainable Bioproducts REMIT. That's basically polyhydroxyalkynate based. Then why we need these materials, what is our base biopolymer, the process of making them, exploratory global warming potential analysis, and exploratory techno-economic analysis, our team, and bioeconomy landscape. The Global Center has started in January this year, so it's not been very long. So hopefully we'll have more scientific content in near future. So please look out for more information and update from our center. Thank you very much.
That was great. Thank you. Really in-depth slides. Thank you very much. So I'll open the floor to questions. Oh, Pippa's straight in there. Already got your hand up. Pippa.
Hi there. Yeah, thanks so much for the talk. I was interested, you mentioned a few times that these are biodegradable products, but you also mentioned incinerating the product. So I just wondered if what you meant by biodegradable for your plastics.
Yeah, I mean, people often think that, plastics mean they would go to incineration or they would biodegrade. But our bioplastics are very, very durable. They can be in the value chain for hundreds of years. So they're really, really tough material. So I'm suggesting here that because we are in a locked in kind of systemic situation, I don't know which part of the world you are from, but if you are from UK, for example, we have the blue bin where you can discard the different types of plastics, assuming that those would be recycled. And in case if they are not recycled, if they're kind of incinerated or they are left to the landfill, we don't know what's happening, right? We don't know what exactly is happening to the fate. If they're recycled, then that's great, but usually they're kind of mixed up, like mixed plastic, and then they could go to different, ideally they should be recycled, but if not, if they're incinerated, then our bioplastics would generate carbon dioxide. If they are landfilled, then our bioplastics would biodegrade and generate carbon dioxide. But they are durable and they're recyclable. So ideally, they should be kept in the value chain again and again. But there is also this systemic loophole we are in.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Norman, you've got your hand up.
Yes, it all sounds very logical, very sensible. I didn't really hear anything that I wouldn't have read 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So what's holding all this up? Why hasn't this happened? Why we still debating and discussing transformation of biomass into C5, C6 sugars when Invista, DSM, other companies were looking at this 20 years ago? What's holding all this back?
Yeah, I think primarily this particular PHA biocomposites, the raw material has been dominantly first generation oily feedstock, canola oil, soya oil. Yes, I mean, fractionation is very common. The technology is very common. Yeah. But I think feedstock is still pretty available from sugar-based or oily feedstock. That's what is changing. I mean, even I also, as I said, I also wrote my book, 11 years ago, published the book 11 years ago, but started writing many years ago. So yeah, I have been working as well for 20 years, and industries are also doing so, but we haven't completely moved away from first generation feedstock to the lignocellulosic or waste organic material. But some industries I have shown here are operating with lignocellulosic or waste materials. For example, CJ Childjedeng they're also our collaborator. They have moved into waste material. They're operating in Korea. But some of the US-based plants are still using first generation feedstock.
Tom, you've got your hand up.
Tom, you're mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. The price difference you talked about, which is kind of 2x, 3x compared to fossil-based feedstocks. You said you can reduce that a little bit, but what do you think that price delta needs to be got down to in order to get mass adoption of this kind of resource?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, well, for mass application, it's a different thing. But for high value applications, such as in medical sector, these materials have really, really high priced, like, 20 to 30 pounds per kilogram. So which will easily make a quick return on investment. In the medical sector, fossil-based plastics are not used. Actually, these biocomposites are used. But for the bulk scale displacement, we have still other challenges. There are a few other economic tools I must mention, which would be carbon taxation. So if fossil-based industries will have to pay for carbon taxation, then that must be added on top of the cost. But here, the cost noted for polyethylene, polypropylene does not include that cost instrument. The other aspect is the single use. So if we, for example, when we do comparative LCA, it would be functional unit based. So you can imagine that one like a kind of more permanent type of bottle or recyclable bottle versus a single use plastics bottle. And then a few single use plastics bottle would actually equate to one recyclable bottle. And if we take that into account, then the functional unit would change from kilogram basis comparison to actually functional unit basis comparison. And then we would see the cost parity. So this way, I think it would make sense to overcome the cost.
Thank you.
Robin, did you have your hand up?
Hi, thanks very much for the presentation. I had a technical question about the recycling aspect of your biopolymer. So for a lot of fossil fuel-based plastics, like recycling is affected, or the properties of the polymer are generally affected by recycling. So that's, after a certain number of cycles, you need to add some more virgin material to make sure that the properties that you need are maintained. So how does the recycling process affect the properties of your biomaterial? Or put differently, how does the recyclability compare with traditional plastics in your case?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think I touched upon, but I did not get into the depth. We haven't have the data yet on the recyclability aspect comparing our biocomposites with fossils. But what we do know that, yes, after, say, one single life, our recyclate will have lower properties, and therefore we need to add some fresh biocomposites. And in what proportion, we do not know yet, because, as I said, the research has just started. But this material or insights would very soon be available. A wide range of properties need to be met, like glass transition, temperature, thermal stability, density. I have talked about tensile strength and Young's modulus. A whole range of ASTM properties need to be met. What I could see from other industries' landscape, that these plastics are pretty durable and tough, and you can use them again and again. But in what proportion? Is it 90-10 blend between recycled content and fresh material, or is it 80-20? And after how many lives? This science, we haven't got to that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Would you know any paper on that? I
not personally, no.
Yeah, but it's something, yeah, we are going to investigate in our 5-year project. So this is just less than a year we are within the project. Yeah.
Okay.
Pippa, you have your hand up again. Is that a new question?
Yes, that's a new question. Just as a consumer, how are the plastics both biodegradable but also durable? Please, can you explain that?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a good question. Biodegradability will take about 3 to 12 months. Yeah, in say natural soil, marine environment, freshwater environment, aerobic condition, etc. And that so we will have those tests of biodegradability, that how they would decay under different natural environments. So in case of any leakage happens, then these materials will biodegrade. But if they are in the value chain, they would be recycled back and constantly recycled back, because when we will produce the material back again, remanufacture the material, we'll have some recycled content as well as some fresh materials, and we'll meet the properties so that the materials don't biodegrade. So we'll improve the property, and then that would be put back to the value chain. So the recycling process would always improve the property, meet the target properties, and then the material would go back to the second life or the consecutive life. Does that make sense? That how they could be durable, but in case if any leakage happens, then they could be biodegradable too. And actually, in one of the slides I had, it does show, still have the slides on the I think European Union demand. It's there. Yeah, it's there. This one. One side says bio-based but non-biodegradable. The other side says bio-based and biodegradable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
In the category of
thinking,
category of biodegradable, these materials are still very durable and recyclable. You can recycle them by improving their properties, by blending with a bit of fresh material every time, and toughen the material so they don't biodegrade. But in case leakage happens, then they won't produce any microplastics. So biodegradability primarily is pointing towards microplastics pollution. Yeah. So no microplastics would be generated. Thank you.
Someone's put a comment here around, there are a few papers on PHA reprocessing that highlight that during the recycling they can lose their properties. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, no, I haven't actually looked at the chat, sorry. Yeah, as I said, yes, the material will have degraded property, and that is why we need to add the fresh material to get to the target properties again, and before putting it as the recycled material to the market.
We've got a hand up. All I can see is the initials OG. So apologies, I'm not sure who OG is.
Yeah, sorry, it's Ocean. Thanks for your presentation. And yeah, coming back to the recycling point, you mentioned that it was, yeah, I guess it's tricky in like the facilities that we have at the moment to kind of separate like plastics and those, I guess, biodegradable and bio-based materials. Is there, I guess, like, do you want to try as well to kind of like get involved more on the, yeah, like making them aware that it's a problem and try to, I guess, like change the facilities as well? Because like, I guess we don't have those facilities at the moment to kind of necessarily select or like divide or like, yeah, like separate like, I guess, PE, PP versus PHA. Is there like, yeah, like, do you want to get involved in indicating maybe more like, I don't know, governments or things like that?
Within the global center, I think there is a bit of scope there. I think our team in Canada is working with the different communities. They have the social scientist specialists who would like to engage with the policymakers and the rural communities and make and grow awareness about how we can segregate source at the source, so that the material which are more recyclable could be collected together and we can resolve the problem of logistics. How far we can get to, it's very difficult to say at this stage, but definitely, I mean, this is one of the top priorities anyway globally, and we'd very much like to contribute as much as possible in terms of generating insights, like scientific evidence, providing scientific evidence that, yes, for that extra cost that you put in for logistics to solve the logistics problem of recyclable material collection separately would actually be, paid off by the benefit you obtained. So I believe that that sort of cost benefit analysis will be able to do. And as much as possible, the engagement with the policymakers and the various stakeholders groups.
Thank you.
Probably a chance for one more question. If someone has a quick question at all, please do shout out. No? Fab. Well, thank you so much for that really, really inspiring webinar and all those great questions. Thanks for everyone for taking the time to join us today. Are you okay if I share your slides with everyone that you presented today?
Yes, I'm happy.
Yes.
For you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of the slides. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.